Del Rio, Texas. Rob Wade and Robert Garza. Two guys who dive. This episode of Two Guys Who Dive, recorded live 7 September 2013, episode 77, What Just Happened? Well, good evening, good afternoon, or good morning, depending on where you're watching us from. Welcome to another exciting episode of Two Guys Who Dive. And I am your host, Rob Wade, and apparently Scuba Bob, a.k.a. Robert Garza, is not going to be with us this evening again. Didn't get any kind of a heads up or word that he wouldn't be here, but I don't know. Maybe I'll have to change the podcast name to One Guy Who Dives, and another guy who sometimes shows up and talks about diving. So anyway, we've got a pretty busy lineup this evening. The title of the episode, of course, if you noticed, was What Just Happened? Well, it hit pretty much everybody by storm and by surprise that Microsoft has purchased most of Nokia. So I'll be talking a little bit about that, my impressions, as well as some other just interesting things like some devices that have been released, or a device that's been released for scuba divers that makes you wonder, what were they thinking? What the heck is this for? And then also sharing a little bit about what's coming up with the Apple iPhone announcements, which are coming up on the 10th of September. So they got some exciting stuff coming out. Of course, anybody who knows me knows I'm not an Apple fan, but, you know, unlike some people I know, even though I can despise Apple, I can acknowledge stuff that they're doing that might be a good idea, or at least enticing. At least I can be that accommodating. And then also, we're seeing the lake levels at Amistad come up, so I'll be showing a few pictures comparatively as the lake levels have changed throughout the last couple of years, and then also sharing thoughts on dive lights, and also sharing some interesting things going on in the Cousteau family. And of course, I'm talking about the relatives of Jacques Cousteau. They got some neat things going on that'll be kind of groundbreaking for scuba divers. So a little bit of information on that. And so let's start off with, every once in a while we do movie reviews. So hold on. I am hearing some whining from one of our dogs wanting to make an appearance. Let me bring Ronan up here. Come here, you. All right, here we go. So make your appearance. There we go. Gonna kiss the microphone. You should see the look on his face. He's kind of looking sideways at the camera. It's like, what do I want to do with the camera? We love our dogs, and certainly we see enough things on Facebook, people sharing pictures about dogs and videos about dogs, and then unfortunately we also see a lot of things shared on Facebook where people have mistreated or otherwise abandoned their dogs. You do not want to meet up with me if you're one of those people, because they will never find your body. So anyway, every once in a while we share movie reviews, and so this week is no different. My wife and I went to go see Riddick last night. Now, excuse me, I like Vin Diesel. I think he's a pretty good action hero actor. He's not shown tremendous, what's the word I'm looking for? depth or breadth in characters. He's, most of the stuff, of course, he's been doing is action films. So there's only so far you can go with that, getting emotional, etc. And he's done at least one, what I would call a family-oriented film. But again, he was kind of the action hero type. But it was the typical take the action hero, make him babysit some kids, and see how the two worlds collide, and then they meld, and then everybody loves each other, and they're sad to see each other go. All that good stuff. That one was pretty good, but again, we didn't see a lot of depth of character out of him. But be that as it may, I do enjoy a lot of his films, and I've watched the Riddick series, starting with Pitch Black, which interestingly, when that first came out, it was just called Pitch Black. As they started, as they rolled into the second movie, The Chronicles of Riddick, I noticed they retitled the first one Pitch Black, The Chronicles of Riddick. So to kind of tie the series together, I think probably they did not expect that the first movie would be kind of a genre classic amongst people. And that's okay. I mean, you never know when you take a chance with somebody who's relatively new like him. And in the original, in the Pitch Black movie, even though he was the main character, it was more of an ensemble cast. Well, as the ensemble started dying off in the movie, it became less of an ensemble, but it was more or less an ensemble cast. And then they really tried to exploit him and the character with the second movie, which was much more grandiose in special effects, in scope of plot, etc. And there were quite a few people who kind of panned that movie because where it went with his character and storyline. Personally, I liked it. There were certain aspects about it that I liked better than the first, and certain aspects about the first movie that I liked better than the second. So we kind of had high expectations when we went to go see the third installment in the Chronicles of Riddick story. And from the excerpts, from the clips and the trailers, it looked like they were kind of coming full circle, because it seemed to share a lot more of the plot elements like the first one. And as it turns out, it kind of shared pieces from, it really shared aspects of both. And it did tie back to the first movie in a kind of an unexpected way, but I don't know. I will say right off the bat, I was fairly disappointed in the movie. It was entertaining, kept my attention. As far as the CGI, etc., it was well done. There were some aspects that I thought could have been better. You'll notice there are hover cycles or jet cycles, for lack of a better description of them, that you'll see in the movie if you go see the movie, that have a little homage, a tiny bit of an homage to the speeder bikes from Star Wars. But the CGI that accompanied the use of those, I thought was weak. It looked layered, didn't look like the physics worked. So there were probably some aspects. I don't know if maybe they rushed the post-production on that, but I thought that could have been done better. There's a particular animal involved, and I won't give it away, that you see a lot of that I felt could have been made to look a little bit more realistic, as far as an imagined creature can look realistic, of course. But it was well done enough. But I saw elements as the movie progressed. I thought, oh, looks CGI. And there were a couple of bits of interaction between Vin Diesel's character, Riddick, and the animal that didn't look like he was interacting. And it's always tough to do, because you're standing there in front of a green screen and have to pretend that you're interacting in some way with something that's not really there. In some cases, when they're setting this up, they have an actor stand in to mimic the movement, so the actors can have something physical to interact with, so that things like muscle movement, gripping, etc., look more realistic. When you're supposed to act like you're grabbing a hold of something, and you're holding a hold of nothing, you can often tell the nuances of lack of musculature, because when you grip something, you see the muscles and tendons stretching or contracting to do that. But you don't if you're imagining holding a cup or holding a creature or whatever. So there were a few points that I thought, okay, well, that didn't look right. Ultimately, for me, the movie was not satisfying as far as the ending. Because of particular plot elements, I thought that it just missed the mark. I felt like they should have gone a different way with the plot line after a certain point, and it didn't go there, and I was frustrated as a viewer. Probably very few other people were, but as a matter of fact, I noticed on Facebook after the movie that somebody had posted that they really liked the movie, and I had to disagree. So I guess it depended on what you were looking for. The language was a lot stronger, I think, in this one than it was in the last one, and there was some unnecessary nudity in the movie too, so I was disappointed with that. Didn't have to go there, but they decided to. This may be probably the last of the Riddick series, but we'll see. Surprisingly, the theater was not full at all. And this is the opening weekend, and a Friday night. There just wasn't any. There were people in there, but I was expecting to get in there and be looking for seats, but not really difficult. So I guess the buzz wasn't very good for this latest movie, this latest Riddick tale, and so we'll see what the rest of the critics and some of my friends who are into the sci-fi genre, what they say about it. And also, if you happen to be joining us live via Ustream, we encourage you to jump in our chat room and interact with us. Right now, it looks like the chat room is pretty blank. Type in there, see if they... Nope, no reactions at all. So anyway, next on... Okay, so along with the theme of what just happened, the biggest news that came out was that Microsoft and Nokia came out with a surprise announcement this week that they are changing from a partnership that they signed in, I think it was 2011, 2012, that Microsoft's buying Nokia, or rather buying the devices and services divisions, which basically means the manufacturing of the phones, that's the Lumia line, as well as the Asha line, the services that go immediately with that, and a bunch of patents, tons of patents that they're getting with that. But they're not getting the HERE division that does the location and mapping. Nokia is keeping that, which I thought that was interesting. So they get all the people, they get the plants, and all that goes with that, and the Lumia name, but they of course don't get the Nokia name. I guess I think I read that for the current line that's out, for a certain period, they still can advertise the Nokia part. But anything created new, I guess, will not have the Nokia name on it. And so, of course, the blogosphere, the tech world, and the stock market reacted to that in some various ways. A lot of us who have been following the Microsoft, Windows Phone, and Nokia saga, we pretty much expected that they would, at some point, would buy the hardware or otherwise somehow merge. Because it was no secret that Nokia as a corporation was having difficult money problems, at least from the standpoint of the shareholders, who were constantly whining about the return on the investment. So that definitely put the pressure on Stephen Elop, who is the CEO, or was the CEO of Nokia, to do something, to turn things around. Now, I think it's pretty clear that looking at the international markets, that actually Windows Phone has been doing surprisingly well. It's not screaming up the market share, but it's been a slow, steady growth in the face of the onslaught of iOS and Android. And the U.S. market actually is one of the weakest markets that Windows Phone and the Nokia Lumia line of phones has. Globally, they're pushing up to a 8.8% share. In the U.S., it's about 3. It's pushing towards 4. In specific markets, it's actually gone higher to like 10%. In some markets, they actually are second to Android, which is interesting. It's just the U.S. market that's relatively weak by comparison, but it's still growing, and they're eating BlackBerry's lunch. In fact, interestingly, there's speculation that once the dust settles from the Nokia purchase, that Microsoft may look at picking up bits and pieces of BlackBerry, which would be interesting. There's not a lot they could get if they pick up BlackBerry, other than to do as they've done before and what Apple and some other companies have done, which is, if you can buy your competition and kill them, just let them die. That's obviously an opportunity. And that's something they could certainly do with BlackBerry, but they could incorporate the BlackBerry messaging capability if they were to purchase them, and then integrate that into their already pretty heavily integrated communications concepts in Windows, in Windows Phone, because they've really moved the farthest along in integrating social and texting, and they've gone the farthest in integrating all of this. With Windows Phone, you can start a conversation in text, move it to MMS, move it to Facebook or Skype without breaking the chain. You can simply change the pathway that you're communicating with somebody, and it follows the whole. You can back yourself through the thread and follow the conversation. I think that's awesome. That it's the digital equivalent of talking to somebody on a telephone, and then them walking in the door and you setting the phone down, hanging the phone up, and continuing the conversation. So electronically, digitally, that's essentially what Microsoft has done. And if they were to grab a hold of BlackBerry and roll that in, that would be pretty awesome. So, but that's another step for another day and another discussion. So they have agreed to buy the devices and services division from Nokia. Now, this on the heels of Steve Ballmer, who is the current CEO of Microsoft, announcing that within the next 12 months that he's going to retire. And of course, everybody's been wondering, well, who's going to be the new CEO? How long before they announce who the new boss is going to be? Are they going to break up Microsoft? Are they going to continue continue exactly how Steve Ballmer has planned to reorg Microsoft and where they're going as far as integrating Windows 8 and Windows Phone and a number of other aspects? And or would it be some mix of the two? What are they going to do? And of course, Stephen Elop, CEO of Nokia, his name has been at the high up, if not at the top of the potential CEO list since the announcement of Steve Ballmer's retirement. And so now with the Nokia purchase, Stephen Elop's name has pretty much gone to the top of the list in just about everybody's book. It's not the only one, but the conventional wisdom seems to be that because he was doing a pretty impressive job of turning Nokia around in the face of overwhelming odds, that he might actually be able to bring a fresh approach excuse me, to Microsoft, who still seems to be floundering a bit. Interestingly, as people have had a chance to think about this, some speculation has surrounding this whole deal. One of the three aspects that some people have settled on are that since the partnership between Nokia and Microsoft is ending in 2014, that there was a fear because of stockholder pressure that Nokia might actually get out of the hardware business or switch to Android. And I was watching Windows Weekly, which is a Twit TV network netcast that has Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley on it. They kind of were speculating that maybe Nokia they weren't ready to jump to Android, but maybe they were dangling that as a stick, or otherwise threatening Microsoft, say, hey, we need to renegotiate this, or we need some help, or we'll just switch to Android. And then also because Elop was doing such a good job from everybody else's perspective of taking Windows Phone as the choice and slowly building the company back up, that they could kind of get him in the deal as the new CEO. And then also, in order to buy these parts of Nokia, Microsoft, all they had to do was use their overseas money. This is money that they have in various places outside the United States, as do Apple, as do Google, and a number of other big corporations. They kind of shelter their money, a lot of their money overseas, because let's face it, the United States is absolutely tax adverse to corporations. We screw over the corporations in the United States when it comes to taxes. So it makes the United States less attractive compared to other countries where you could have your money there. Now, obviously, if they had used domestic dollars, there would have been all sorts of taxes as part of the sale, etc. So this money basically is free money that they could turn around and reinvest, basically handing over to Nokia for their division. And all of that would stay over in Finland. It would stay over there. So they don't have to worry about repatriating anything. It's all over there. So they bought that whole kit and caboodle. So they get the manufacturing, they get the technicians, the engineers, all the people who are responsible for the Nokia phones and the Lumia line in particular. Now, interestingly, adding to this mix, we have Change.org has started publicizing a petition started by the stockholders that are directed at the board of directors at Nokia, asking basically, why did you sell off these parts of Nokia, and why didn't you consider Android instead of Windows Phone, and why don't you still consider Android instead of Windows Phone, or in addition to, and then why are you backtracking on the where up to this point you've been reporting to us that Nokia's cash situation was actually improving, and now suddenly you say one of the reasons for doing the sale is because your cash situation wasn't where it needed to be. So interesting. What's the word I'm looking for? The stockholders seem to be of two minds. You don't whine about what Nokia is doing as far as the return on your investment, and then when they do something that is for the benefit of the stockholders, then turn around and whine at them about that. I mean, they're darned if they do and darned if they don't. So stockholders are funny things. Most of them aren't very bright to begin with, and they have no patience. Much like a lot of stock investors, some just live on the short sale on stuff. They're constantly acquiring low, selling high, but as quickly as possible instead of staying for the long term. Yeah, I just never understood. I never understood that mentality, because all you're doing is playing with paper money. You're not playing with you're playing with money, digits in electrons. You're not playing with real money, because at any point it's just a snapshot in time. So why not wait for the long term and help the company you're investing in? So anyway, that's an interesting thing. So if you want to look at what that petition looks like, you can go to change.org and check it out. So my take on all this, I reacted right off the bat saying, I'm not sure that I think this is the greatest of ideas. There wasn't enough information yet, but my initial take, and I'm still settled on this, on my initial reaction for the most part. Here's how I look at it. Microsoft had to do something to get back in the game. They had to be bold. They couldn't copy, and I do mean Microsoft. They couldn't copy Google's path. They certainly couldn't copy Apple's path. They had to come up with something bold and new. And so they came up with Windows Phone. Now, going back 2 years, a little over 2 years now, they came out with Windows Phone 7. And it looked great. I loved it right off the bat. It was where I thought they needed to go, having lived with the Windows Mobile, Pocket PC and Windows Mobile days. And a lot of people don't realize, if you remember back in the day when you had Palm, everybody, when you saw somebody with a handheld device, is that your Palm Pilot? And I would just constantly, verbally smack people. It's like, no, this is much better than a Palm Pilot. It's a Windows Mobile. It actually has a version, a type of Windows on it. It's more colorful, more powerful, etc. And they ultimately did kill Palm. Palm pretty much died off. And in fact, interestingly, the Palm Trio 600 and 700 series were running a version of Windows Mobile. So that's where that went. But they let it stagnate. They really didn't go anywhere with it. And then Apple did them one better in the mobile platform. And Microsoft was really, really slow, as they so typically are. They were slow to respond. So they came out with Windows Phone 7, which was built on the old Windows CE kernel, which is the core operating system. Not trying to get too techie for some of you folks, but it was built on the core built on the core, the Windows CE core that the Windows Mobile and Pocket PC was built on. So it was already outdated as far as the behind the scenes, the back end of it. But it had a really cool front end. I loved the way it worked. And I still have my Nokia Lumia 900. I gave away my very first Windows Phone 7 device, which was a Samsung Focus. Gave that away to a friend because he was looking for a different phone. He wanted to try it out, and so now he's a Lumia fan. He's a Windows Phone fan. He's got one. He's been upgrading. So, and it's a great device. It still works fine. And it's updated to Windows 7.8, and it still gets some updates, things like that. So it's a great spare. If I crash my other devices, I've got a spare. Or if I really feel generous, I could give this away to somebody who just wants to try it out. But anyway, the problem is it was the Windows CE base core. Well, what they did not let everybody know was that they were working on Windows Phone 8 at the same time, and it was based on the Windows RT kernel, the same kernel that basically is where your desktop now, Windows 8, is based on. So it was a parallel operating system, still with basically the same front end, but a totally different back end. Because there was nowhere they could go with Windows 7, Windows Phone 7. That was going to be the end of the line. With Windows Phone 8, with Windows RT kernel in the back end, they actually now have forward momentum. And that's where they're going. They're merging the desktop operating system with the phone, with the mobile devices. And interestingly, I should probably try and call this up if I can. Interestingly, go to Windows Phone Central, I think. Well, everybody's got it at this point. A leak of an upcoming update later this year for here we go. Reveals, let me switch to screen region here. This reveals an update that's coming up. It's talking about GDR3, and without going into the deep parts of it, they're currently rolling out GDR2, which adds some additional features to the phones, but GDR3 is going to be adding some more things here. Let me bring the volume down here. So evidently somebody got a hold of a device that has been running a test version of GDR3 on it. And this is a Lumia 920, which I also have. And it's a Windows Phone 8 device. So you'll notice here, interestingly, let me see if I can pause this. If you'll notice here, some people have been complaining about how you can't exit the multitask. This is how it's showing how you control multitasking on it. And they were complaining that you can't actually exit running programs in background. You can switch to them quickly with this, but there are a lot of people who are stuck in the Android world where you absolutely have to manage your running apps because Android sucks, quite frankly, at memory management. It chokes and dies. And so you quickly fill up your memory with things that are running, and it comes to a screeching halt. It's a dog. But people like the customization, and they're so hooked on being able to kill off apps that they're like, why isn't it available in Windows Phone? Well, because Windows Phone manages memory much smarter. You don't have the machine lock up on you because you've got a bunch of apps running, because it manages it for you. So anyway, but because people absolutely were crying about it, because they can't seem to grasp the concept that an operating system can manage it better than they can, Microsoft looks like they have added that feature in. So you'll notice that in the upper right corner of any app, as it comes around to the center of the screen, shows you what the icon looks like, or the live tile looks like down below here. And you can actually click on the X to make it go away. And notice that it makes it go away similar to the way Windows 8, the desktop or the tablet, makes apps go away. And it just shows you that the two platforms are getting closer and closer together. And he's just showing off some of the changes in the settings. They've added driving mode, which changes the way the phone's going to interact with you and Bluetooth and some other things while you're driving. It shows you that this is called the Lumia Bittersweet Shimmer. The GDR2 update for Lumia devices is called Amber. And so I guess that starts with A, so this is B, Bittersweet Shimmer. So that's a B update. Now, supposedly they're also adding some more customization to notifications, which a lot of people have been asking about. You can lock your screen rotation, which, that's a feature that I have absolutely no use for, but so many people have been whining about. I don't understand why you need to lock. You turn it one way and it switches to landscape. You turn it another way, it switches to portrait. I don't understand why you want to lock it. Evidently, they've done a lot of work on the Bluetooth stack, so it'll be better equipped to work with various other Bluetooth devices, as well as, mobile, cars, vehicles. I believe there's some more things you can do with the Wi-Fi on it. Of course, he was starting to play with the equalizer and enhancements and those kinds of things, which you can't do unless you have your headphones plugged in, by the way. Because it's kind of useless for the small speakers to do that. Now, I just saw that another... nice. Okay, so glance screen notifications are there. Oh, noisy music. So he's showing some more aspects. Yes, it's the bittersweet. Showing the revision of the firmware. And again, you can see where the X pops up, which as a particular running app becomes the center, and then you can exit it from there, or of course tap on it to go make it focused. Now that's a 920, and that is, with those updates, it looks pretty snappy. All right, what's he trying to do? It's hard to see what he's exactly doing. Something with the camera. Alright, showing how you can exit. Looks like there's nothing new shown here. Okay. So nothing additional shown there. But, so that is to say that GDR3, which is anticipated to come out probably around November, or at least be released in with new devices in November, which apparently looks like the next Lumia device is going to be the phablet, the 6-inch monster, currently floating around being known as Bandit, but now that it's... I think pretty much everybody has figured out that it's going to be the Lumia 1520, but it's not going to have quite the same. It's not going to have quite as good a camera as in the the Lumia 1020 that I have here. It's going to have one, looks like a little bit larger than the Lumia 925. I think it's going to be a 21 megapixel camera, so it's still going to be awesome. And obviously some enhancements are probably going to be in the software will be added with it. But that's after that comes out, you'll probably start seeing the availability of the GDR3 update for everybody. And then the final one that's supposed to bring it pretty much on parity with like the Windows RT tablets is what they call Windows Phone Blue or 8.1, which, if that sounds familiar, the Windows desktop and tablet 8.1 has been available to us in preview, and I'm actually running it on my machine here and on my my notebook. That does add a number of features and improves some aspects of the original Windows 8. And it's RTM'd, which means released to manufacturers, and I guess the official release where you can update for free through the Windows Store, update your desktop or your tablet or your notebook, October 18th, right after my birthday, October 15th. So if you want to get me something for my birthday, October 15th. So anyway, that's 8.1 is supposed to be available. So fast forward to January, February timeframe is when everybody's expecting the Windows Phone 8.1 or Windows Phone Blue will be released. And it's looking more and more like that really is going to be what brings everything together. Okay, so Microsoft's ultimate goal has been to unify the platforms. So as a developer, somebody writes software, if I write it for one, it's basically written for everything. Now, for a developer, that makes it really attractive because I don't have to put out a bunch of versions. It's basically out there. It scales to the device that I'm going to use. And that's brilliant from a money-making potential, as well as attracting more developers. So, obviously, the installed base for PCs, laptops, and laptops is much higher than for Windows phones. So, if I can write for the larger platform, where I get a lot of people, a lot of customers, and it becomes available as a matter of course for the phones. Great. I now have more of a reason to pick up a Windows Phone because I've got the same applications available or same apps available on both platforms without any extra effort. It also makes the ubiquitous access of data, my data, across any platform that much easier, and that's what I want. I want to be able to sit down on my desktop, do some work on something, get up, grab my laptop or my tablet, continue on where I left off, and then set that down and be able to just run around with my phone and continue that work. And then the reverse be true. That's really what I want. I don't want to even have to think about. I want to be device agnostic when it comes to accessing my information. So, Microsoft tried to get a number of companies involved in making devices for them. Well, with the Windows Phone 7, that was going to be a dead end, really. Windows Phone 8, much more open, but they'd already burned a lot of potential customers because they felt they were kind of, they were given the bait and switch. Nokia, however, struck up a deal with them because they saw there was no chance for them to continue on with the feature phone, which is what the Asha and some of the other series. The feature phone was going to die off. That somehow, some way, they needed to get into the smartphone market. Well, obviously, iOS was not going to be an option, even as popular as it is. Apple owns it. They're very vertical. They have the whole thing from top to bottom. The only three options they had were to create their own smartphone OS, and they tried to with this thing called MeeGo, and that just didn't grab people's imagination. Or they could go with Android, which was already screaming up the charts, or they could go with Windows Phone. Well, The stockholders, unfortunately, actually believed that they should have gone with, and probably still should, go with Android. Problem with that is Samsung is pretty much it when it comes to Android. Yes, LG makes some, but who buys theirs? HTC makes some, but they are totally hit and miss when it comes to getting any kind of popularity with theirs. Everybody's buying the very Samsung ones because Samsung has a well-oiled machine. They can make some super high-end ones, or they can make crap, and most of their stuff is crap. So they've got this huge variety that they can hit. They can hit the low-end market, the emerging, what they call the emerging market, out in the third world countries and second world countries, or they can make the high-end ones for people who have more dollars than cents. Okay, so they got the full market. Apple, pretty much, they survive because of subsidizing, because their devices are pretty much high-end, and they're not changing their tune, or they weren't changing their tune. So here we are. Nokia has decided, all right, if we're going to make a go at this, we need to go with Windows Phone, because nobody is really digging into this. Everybody is, all the other OEMs are basically taking warmed over Android devices and porting Windows Phone onto it. Nokia decided to take their brilliant engineers, their designers, and start from scratch. And they did, and I think they have been very successful in creating a very unique look, consistent quality, staying with their reputation of having very high quality feature phones. Now they have very high quality smartphones. And even given lower specs compared to the stuff that the Android OEMs are coming out with, it didn't need to be higher end because the Windows Phone operating system is much more efficient than Android ever hopes to be. So the trade-offs were it was a much more closed system than Android. You don't have as much customization that you can do. So personally, I got tired of all the ridiculous customization that I had to do to make Windows Mobile back in the day usable. I like an operating system that gives me my information the way I want to quickly, right off the bat, without me having to go through all sorts of machinations, which I don't have to with Windows Phone. And I just like the quality, the build quality of the hardware. So it didn't take long before I grabbed a hold of Nokia, and I have not looked back. So when the announcement came out that Nokia was selling off its devices and services divisions to Microsoft, my reaction was that Microsoft kicking out Windows Phone 8, even as good as it was, wouldn't have had a chance had Nokia not grabbed a hold of them. Because Nokia was hungry. They knew they needed to change things around, and they had no choice but to do something bold and desperate. To borrow a phrase from Star Trek character Spock, Mr. Spock, in the episode Galileo 7, as they finally got the shuttlecraft off the planet, but they only had enough fuel. They had enough fuel to basically make some orbits and hopefully get spotted by the Enterprise, who was desperately trying to find them. But they knew they couldn't stay. They only had enough fuel to do a few orbits, and then they weren't going to be able to. They would crash back down to the planet. Spock made a desperate move, and he basically dumped all the fuel and then ignited it. So it created like a flare. And fortunately, the Enterprise this Enterprise sensors picked that up. They saw him, and they beamed him out of the shuttle just before it burned up on reentry. So, and then McCoy yanks Spock's chain, as he always did in the series, and said, "So you made an emotionally desperate move." And of course, Spock's retort was, "No, I arrived at a very logical way. I looked at all the potential options that we had and realized that the only option we had would have to be one of desperation. And so he took that act of desperation. So Nokia kind of found themselves in that situation. They took a chance with Windows Phone, and they said, you know what, we're going to go all in. We're not going to do like Samsung. We're not going to do like HTC. We're not going to do like LG and the others and take a weak Android device and try to make Windows Phone work on it. They said, we're doing this from scratch, and they did, and it's paying off. They have gone from zero to now Nokia Lumia line of Windows Phone has 70 to 80% of the Windows Phone market. Now that's a big fish in a very small pond, but to come from behind and dominate the Windows Phone market tells you that they did something right. So what I'm afraid of now is that Microsoft's bought them, and Microsoft, who keeps blowing it in decisions of transparency, marketing, decisions on what they're going to push into, make available for the devices. And then my particular big complaint is they absolutely caved to the carriers. I hate the carriers. Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T, I hate them. Why do I hate them? Because they obstruct progress. I understand they're trying to make money, but because they are the big obstruction in updating devices of any type. Doesn't matter whether it's Windows Phone or Android or even iPhone. They are the ones that insist on putting all their little special trimmings on things. You know what? AT&T, I just need you to be a pipe. That's all I need from you. I don't need you to give me fancy apps. I don't need you to give me fancy features. I want my features to come from the OS, and from the operating system on my phone, and from the device itself. I don't want you to do anything other than give me the best possible signal and the fastest possible data throughput. That's all I need from you. I don't want anything else. I won't pay for anything else. Get out of the way. But unfortunately, they own the pipes, and so Microsoft, in their choice in their effort to get to the market, they had to bow down and acquiesce to the limitations that the carriers were placing on them. So anyway, Microsoft because they're so big, they keep making all these really, really stupid decisions that don't properly support their good decision, which was Windows Phone. Nokia has actually been the biggest driver to get Windows Phone updated and a faster update path. And anybody who has a Lumia device knows that we get updates all the time. We get new features added quicker than any other device. I defy any device to anybody with any device to show me that they get more features and updates to their devices than the Lumia line does. It's just remarkable to me. If you want to, in the Android world, if you really want to push updates faster, you have to basically what they call root the phone and load things yourself. I don't want to go through all that effort. I want a device that does what it needs to do with very little effort on my part. I want a device that I don't have to tweak, twist, jump through hoops to get it to make it new to me, to make it productive for me. I feel like every time I see an update, it's like a Christmas all over again. I know with no effort other than just saying yes, update it, that I'm going to be getting some new features or enhancements to it. I love it, and I've never been disappointed. I'm only disappointed in the way Microsoft has handled a number of the things that they should have been doing better in order to sell these devices. Nokia has stepped up. They've done monumental marketing and still are. My fear is that's going to whittle away to nothing once they're rolled under Microsoft. The best thing that I think that they can do to turn this around or to allay those fears, since they're going to, right off the bat, they're losing Nokia. So they need to, there's two things that have quickly become the center point for Windows Phone's survival at this point. The name Nokia and the name Lumia. They're losing Nokia. So they better not, I'm hearing rumors that they might, but they better not drop the Lumia name. They better continue on the devices. If they're since they now own what essentially is the Nokia Lumia machine, they need to keep the one piece of the name that they can that's gained recognition and market support. And that's the Lumia. So it would be a grave error to drop the Lumia name. So this is why I think that if Stephen Elop, who is now part of the deal, I think he goes ahead of the class as potentially becoming CEO of Microsoft. At first, I was reluctant to support that, but now I think that would be the smartest thing, because he's already got a mindset of how to turn it around. They were doing things ahead of what Microsoft was. Nokia was responsible for, and obviously he was a part of that, responsible for pushing Microsoft when nobody else could. So now he potentially could be that mechanism right at the top instead of pushing from the partnership aspect. And I would think he would logically force them, make them to keep the Lumia name. That's what they need to do. So it'll be interesting to see over the next few months what's going to happen. Nokia was hungry. Microsoft was not. Nokia was making bold decisions. Microsoft made some bold decisions and then confounded them with stupid decisions. So I think with this purchase, the smart thing to do would be put Stephen Elop in charge, keep the Lumia name, and then press ahead. It's going to be interesting to see what all the other OEMs who have been kind of still half-heartedly in on Windows Phone, what they do. The one company I would say started to put both feet into Windows Phone was HTC. Bold choices with the HTC Windows Phone 8X and 8S. Those are really beautiful devices. They are sort of an homage to the Nokia lines, but they are good-looking devices. And I see that they are coming out with a Harmony. Is it Harmony? Let's see if I can find it. Harmony. Saw somebody had a picture of, it was either a picture or a render. Not there. Let me try Windows Phone or WM Power User. Blink, bling. Man, there are there are Instagram apps starting to flow like crazy now or compatible apps flowing like crazy now in the Windows Phone arena. Huh. Okay. More for wireless charging. Oh, by the way, didn't share that I got my the 1020, the Lumia 1020 does not come with wireless charging built in. You have to get this little shell for it that adds that feature. And I got spoiled on that with my my 920. It is so convenient just to walk in, set my phone down on the little platform, and it's charging. And it charges fast. And so I finally got the wraparound for mine, and again, it's just I've just been able to sit my phone down and it's charging without even thinking about it. It's so sweet. I know I saw. There we go. So here is what supposedly. Oh, I these little pop-ups. So this is what apparently is coming out. Oh, this is a mock-up. The anticipation that it's going to be a Windows Phone version of the HTC One, which is a popular Android device. It'll be interesting to see, but it supposedly is going to have GDR3 on it as well. So I think we're going to see, come holiday season, all the GDR3 devices. As you can see there, they're talking about the Lumia 1520. That thing is going to be monstrous. The 1020 and the 920 are about as big a device as I can handle. I've got fairly small hands, so I just can't see getting a device that big. But I know people who like the Galaxy Note, and so they like the bigger screens, etc. So it'll be interesting to see if those take off. So anyway, this next quarter is going to be an interesting travel for what some people are calling Nokia soft. Okay, so in other tech news, again, I'm not a fan of Apple, but you've got the big event for Apple coming up 10 September, where they're pretty much settled. They're going to be everybody knows it's going to be they're going to be releasing or announcing the iPhone 5S, and they believe the 5C, which will be the first time that Apple has ventured into the lower or the cheaper device market, because they're losing market share worldwide. They're losing market share to certainly to Android's low-end devices, because they can sell them on the cheap. But even in a lot of the emerging markets, the 520, 521, the 620 Lumia series are starting to eat Apple's lunch too. They're eating out of their market too, because those are low-cost devices. We're talking about a 520 where you can buy it for basically $100 off contract. In some places we've seen sales of like $89, something like that, for a decent Windows phone, a decent smartphone for $89 off contract. Amazing. So the speculation for the 5S, the 5C, where's some pictures, I guess, there we go, is that the 5S with the 16 gigabyte version looks like they're expecting it to start at subsidized, meaning it actually costs more, but what you'll have to pay out of pocket to get one, $199, and then go all the way up to people are saying that there might actually be a 128 gigabyte version, which subsidized will be $499. So $500 for a subsidized 128 gigabyte iPhone 5S. People believe that the 5C would be cheaper, probably be about $450 for I think a 16 gigabyte version off contract. And people are saying that it might not be available directly in the United States. It might be focusing on the emerging markets, so they can compete in those markets, because they're losing out. So it'll be interesting to see. Now, interestingly, it looks like the 5C will be much more colorful. Again, borrowing from HTC, borrowing from Nokia, especially Nokia, having much more colorful devices. So you can see there's a purple one and a green one, and I've seen some other colors out there, yellow, etc. But looks like they're going to try and compete in that market. I imagine if they see that there's enough clamor for it, and they originally planned to put the 5C out there in emerging markets, they'll make it available available in the United States. So it'll be interesting. So that's September 10th. So I'm sure everybody's going to be glued to their internets to see what's going on with that. Let's see. Okay, I was mentioning earlier that some interesting things going on in the deep sea world. Jacques Cousteau, who is, of course, unless you have been under a rock, you know his name. Jacques Cousteau is in the forefront of all things scuba diving and undersea world, etc. And his progeny have been very active in all of those endeavors as well. Well, apparently, one of his grandsons, Fabien Cousteau, will be taking a team down to the NOAA's Aquarius Reef Base, which is a permanently submerged habitat down in Florida. He'll be taking them down to, it's at 63 feet. So it's, 3 atmospheres. So they'll be taking down to, going down to that and spending 31 days. That's 31 days in a compressed environment. The focus will be on trying to discover new things about what happens to humans in such conditions. Now, if you're a recreational diver, that means that you don't go into a decompression requirement. You watch your depth and you watch your times and you stay with the dive tables. And once you reach your saturation point as a maximum, you come up to the surface. So you don't have to go through decompression stops. If something goes wrong, you have a method. You're out. Your safe harbor is getting to the surface. When you're doing extended saturation diving like that, there is no going to the surface. That will be fatal. You have to find your way back to your little habitat or other submersible that's been down there with you. If you watch movies like The Abyss and Leviathan and some other ones, you see what that's about. Well, what they're hoping to find out is some more things about what goes on with the human body with extended time in living in a compressed air environment. There were some interesting things that you find out already are things like, and I didn't realize this, your taste buds go dull at 3 atmospheres. So in other words, you go down, and I don't know if that's 3 atmospheres absolute or 3 atmospheres, which means you either are counting the atmosphere above the water or you're not. So at 3 atmospheres, your taste buds go dull. Well, that's interesting. So I guess I could test that by taking something like a Jolly Rancher and go diving with it and get down to 3 atmospheres and see at what point I either stop being able to taste it or it's less of a noticeable taste. I may be able to sense like sweet and sour, but maybe not any other nuances. That'll be interesting. But they'll be looking at all these different things that happen to the human body that you don't expect or anticipate at that depth. So 31 days they're going to be spending underwater. I guess that's why it's called Mission 31. So they'll be looking at doing that. They start that the 12th of November. So that should be interesting. So 31 days. So holiday time, we should start seeing some interesting outcomes from that. Probably the first quarter of next year, we'll see some reports coming out. That'll be interesting. Okay. From the what the heck is this for department, there is this device that I saw in the latest scuba diving magazine. And so I had to go to the website to see if this was, no kidding, for reals. And they have this thing by H2Odyssey called the Torid Pulse. Now, that looks so science fiction. It looks like something out of some sort of a science fiction movie or a steampunk kind of cosplay or something like that. And you see in the picture in the background there what this does. It basically, if you look on the handle, there is a connector, a fitting, for a hose that comes from your tank. similar to the hose that connects to your power inflator in your BC. So you get air from your tank, and it goes into this device, and then you can pull the trigger, and apparently you can fine-tune the size of the ring, but it shoots an air ring. So it says blast water 15 feet into the air to get the boat's attention. So it can actually work above water. You can play Capture the Flag and other paintball type games. Adjust the air rings while shooting from fine and fast to large and slow. I think I saw on the Scuba Diving magazine article that this will shoot this thing up to 30 feet forward. Because now think about this. Of course, air wants to go up. So it has to be a pretty good force to create an air ring that moves horizontally in the water column for 30 feet. But supposedly it's used for getting your buddy's attention in limited visibility. I don't see how that would work in limited visibility. Because if you're in limited visibility, I don't think you're going to be able to see this ring coming at you or by you. I just don't see how you'd see it. Seems like it would work much better in good to moderate visibility. Here in this picture, it looks like, unless it's been a doctored photo, it's moderate visibility. Now, at best, that's the kind of visibility we would see out at Lake Amistad. And that's at best, where we're having really a good season, and it's about 30 feet. I can almost guarantee you wouldn't see this in the visibility we have right now at Lake Amistad. So I wonder how much this thing is going to cost. Of course, it doesn't say. Contact us for details availability. Yeah, I imagine it'll probably cost a lot more than it's worth as far as the fun and functionality factor. So, yeah, it's just one of these devices of what the heck is this for? So, coming to a dealer near you for whatever reason, who knows? Speaking of Lake Amistad, the levels are rising, but still got a long way to go, and so I decided to pull a few pictures together to show the dramatically varying lake levels at Lake Amistad. This picture was taken in 2010 out atop Scuba Cove when the dam upstream broke and the lake level came up to, I think, record levels. In the distance there you see what are known as the Diablo East Cliffs. And there's really not much to the cliff there because the water is so high. Now, jump forward to 2012. This was early 2012. The lake levels, which, if you look in the upper left of this screen, you see where the first ledge juts out and then takes a 90-degree drop straight down to the sloping part. That's where those water levels were in the previous picture. Okay, that's where that's at. So the lake had dropped. This is pretty close. This is a little bit lower than the normal levels. The normal levels are where you see the kind of the darkish gray ring down below, about 3 feet below the cement walkway. That's where the water levels normally are at. Okay, and so it had already been dropping below that. This was where they, in order to relieve the pressure, they opened the lower gates, and unfortunately the lower gates are not often used, and so the gates were letting water out at a high rate, and they couldn't close them. They got stuck, so they had to call Navy SEAL divers, technical divers, to come in and actually work the doors loose so they could close them again. Well, unfortunately, by the time they did that, we're rolling into drought, and so the irrigation farmers needed water, and so a lot more water was still being let out even after it dropped precipitously. So now we look at, this was June of this year. So now this small boat that you see in the center of the picture, this was at roughly 40 feet. We would dive to 40 feet to get on this. So you can tell that the water was down at least 40 feet from there, actually closer to 45 feet. So then we look at July of this year. And again, if you look in the upper left of the screen here, and you see the grassy area on top of the cliffs, this is Diablo East again at Scuba Cove. You follow the grassy area down, and you see there's like a little mini ledge with a tuft of grass on it and drops down. And then there's a ledge that juts out and then drops 90 degrees down before the gradual rock slope. That little drop down there is the same as that one. So you can see now between June and July, or August, I think it was August actually, you see that it dropped. That slope there is now well above the water. So now this is what it looks like right now. Let me back up a little bit. So you see where you have the dramatic slope, then it's a gradual slope, and then a dramatic slope again, and it's flattened out. Okay, it's starting to come back up. I can't see the small boat anymore, but look at all the foliage that's grown up. This foliage here, these bushes, which are taller than me. Most of these are taller than me. I walked down there. Those would be 30 feet underwater. This is a shot taken from the top of the dive chest, which is normally at 30 feet. And from here, we would actually navigate about a 275-degree course to hit the small boat, and then a 300-degree course from the small boat to hit the big boat. And I walked over there to see if I could see the big boat, but it's evidently not visible. And then this is from the opposite side there, kind of looking at the dock that the Park Service put in there. You can see the walkway all the way up to the top on the upper right-hand part of the screen. You see the walkway and the rails as you come off the parking area. That's a long trek. So I will not be teaching classes here anytime soon, even though this is where I normally would teach them. Sad, very, very sad. I'm hoping it comes up this next year. We've been getting a lot of rain, and so it is coming up pretty quick, but not quick enough for me. Didn't get to dive today, which is kind of disappointing, but had a lot of stuff to do anyway. So who knows? Might be able to squirrel a dive in maybe tomorrow. I don't know. We'll see if we get some takers. Let's see what else we got. Dive lights. I have replaced my primary and backup lights with LED lights, and I'm pretty much not looking back. I went diving last weekend with some friends, and they were all running conventional dive lights, even with brand new batteries. They much preferred being able to see things with my light. The LED lights now, even the low lumens ones, which is a reference to the brightness, are more powerful, and then your typical traditional dive lights that people are using. And the beauty of the LEDs are that it doesn't take as much battery power, so you can get a long time usage out of a fresh set of batteries using LED lights than you can with conventional. So looking at one of my favorite places to shop, Leisure Pro, you can see a number of the various LED lights that they have. Now, they are more expensive because obviously the manufacturing of them, it costs more, but it's and it's largely a factor now of the amount of lumens that you can get for the light, but you do get what you pay for. The one I have that I was using was the Princeton Tech yellow one here, the Shockwave. This basically was the LED version of my old dive light, because I had the original Shockwave. And so this has got 3 LEDs in it, and it's only 170 lumens, and yet this thing just outshines. Everybody loved the brightness that this light was shining, and it made a believer out of them. They're like, they all said that our next purchase is going to be LED lights. And the same is true for the little backup BC lights. So much brighter. But you can imagine if at 170 lumens you can easily see with the light that I have, you can jump up to spend $119 and get the new 400 lumen or the 390 lumen mini wave, and basically quadruple triple your brightness there. That would you probably land aircraft with. But again, it's not any bigger. It's the same thing. It's just I imagine what they've done is they've packed more LEDs in there. Now, the beauty of the Princeton Tech that I like is that it's got 2 brightness modes in it, so it just jumps up the juice to it. So you got a low power mode, which is still bright, and then a full power mode. It's just by one click of your pivot switch trigger that's on that. Love them. They're sturdy. They're reliable. I've not had any issues with them. Now you can get then also your backup lights, and even those are kind of pricey, but they're LEDs, and they really it really makes a difference. Now, my wife has the old style version of this one, and it really works well. I mean, she loves it, but eventually I want to get her an LED version of this, which is nice. See if I can see the one that I have just picked up. The UK ones are also very good. They're a little bit more pricey than the Princeton Techs. I think. Let's see. There's some more UK. Those are awesome lights. Those are awesome lights. The UK SL4s. I'm not seeing the one that I carry. Oh, wait a minute. This is it. Nope, that's not it. Maybe they don't carry it. I got it at the Diver Supply store in Grand Cayman when we were on our trip. And I don't see it here. Looks like they don't sell it. But if I went to the Diver Supply website, they'd have it. But so you can see the price range you're talking about, but it is well worth it because as I said earlier, the amount of time that the light lasts, and obviously if you're on a long night dive, you want to have reliable light, and you don't want it obviously with regular lights. They start to get dim as the battery goes down. I don't want that happening to me on a dive. And so I have complete confidence with the LEDs that they're going to stay bright for a long time, certainly longer than even a couple of dives, night dives are going to be. Or if you're diving out here in Lake Amistad, even in a day dive, if you're diving some of these rock walls that we like to do, like out at Spur 454, you're under an overhang, and you've got considerable rock above you. It's not really a cave, but the way that the rock structures are, you might as well be in one as far as the light's concerned. And so you have to have certainly a backup light, which I always dive with. Always dive with a backup light. But in these cases, I take my primary because it's bright, has a broader beam, and you really need it when you're down there. 60, 70 feet, it's pretty dark. You have to shut everything off, let your eyes get acclimated to the little light that's there, to see that there is little light. So definitely worth your while to invest in LED lights. Yeah, if you've got limited funds and you want to get just a regular light, that's fine. But I strongly urge you to upgrade as soon as you can. Well worth it. Shared last week some pictures of my wife and I involved in the latest Upstagers production curtains, and just kind of showed off some of the photography skills of the father of one of the actors in the show. And he did a wonderful job. And we have such a great time. Again, we've said before, if you actually think about it, there are plenty of things to do in Del Rio. And being on stage or behind the scenes of a stage production definitely counts as one of those things. That will take up considerable amount of your time. And as it turns out, I thought it was going to be taking a break, but the next production that the Upstagers are working on is called Remember Me, which is a little romantic comedy. The show will run November 1st, 2nd, 8th, and 9th. So they were beginning to do the casting for that show. And I think that probably a number of people were burned out after working Whirlwind on the previous show, and so not a lot of people showed up. And so I got the call to see if I would be available to help out. And it seems like a cute premise, and it doesn't look like we're going to be doing any kind of a production with our church show that we normally do, The Gospel According to Scrooge. We're not going to be doing that this year because we just don't have enough people to cast it. So I was kind of going to be available. So I said, okay, yeah, I'll be happy to be in it. So it's a 4-person show. All takes place in one location. So it'll be easy for set changes, which is great. It's basically about a couple that's been married for 20 years. Their marriage is fine, but it's just kind of a little stale. And that happens when you kind of stop dating each other. And the wife starts imagining her ex-boyfriend from college, from school, being there. So she's holding conversations with him and having these fantasies. And the husband gets jealous. So he hires an actress to play his former girlfriend. So obviously there all sorts of hilarity ensues with all of this. But I play the imaginary boyfriend. So it's those are always kind of fun because you are only interacting directly with one person and nobody else is supposed to be able to see you. So always that can be an interesting challenge from an acting standpoint, but it's certainly a lot of fun as a premise. So we'll be starting up rehearsals with that next week, so that's going to be fun. So if you are in the Del Rio area, the first or second weekends of November, and you're looking for something to do, we encourage you to head out to the Paul Pogue Theater for the Performing Arts, which is down on Main Street here in Del Rio. go out there and check out the show. And you'll get to see me in a completely different venue than you're seeing me here. I have a blast working, and I'll be working with people, with the exception of one person. I'll be working with actors that I have done shows with before and have had a great time. So looking forward to that. It's always fun when you get to work with people that you've had a great experience with. Kind of like diving. I always like I'll dive with anybody, hence the nickname, but I definitely have my most fun diving with people that I've been diving with before, because you know what to expect. You don't have to. You're not anticipating things that you have to pay closer attention to than you would if you were diving with somebody you've never been diving with before. So it's just always much more fun. And then the conversations you can get into before and after the dive. If you're with people that you know really well and have fun with, it's always fun. We had such a great time on our Cayman trip with two friends of ours. It was just such an easy trip, and just had a great time. And hopefully we'll get to go on another trip with them this next year. That would be awesome. But we'll see what happens. You never know. So, okay, let's hit the administrivia real quick before we head out. So, next Del Rio Dive Club meeting is 19 September 2013 at 7 p.m. at Rudy's Restaurant, which is there by Walmart in Del Rio. We'd love to see you there. And we're fresh out of our Balleray State Park dive trips, but certainly it's a while before the season winds down completely, and it's such a great place to go, and the water is the same temperature all year round. So we might be convinced, if the opportunity comes up and there's interest, we might be convinced to kind of do an ad hoc trip up there. So we'll see what happens. If we do come up with something and we can give you enough heads up, we'll post it here. Certainly we'll put it on our Facebook page and our website. And the last scuba class that we have for the year is 26th to 29th of September. You should be signing up this week if you're going to be in on this class. It'll be the last planned one I have. I can certainly do special classes if somebody wants to do it, wants to pay for it. I'll certainly do it, but the pretty much will finish out the season September 26th to the 29th. So give us a contact, hook up with us on Facebook, or give me a call, send an email if you're interested in getting signed up for this class. And the way you can stay in touch with us, of course, is our Facebook page. Just look for Del Rio Dive Club, or via Skype messaging. You can just look for Two Guys Who Dive all together. And then, of course, visit us at our webpage, delriodiveclub.com. If you would like to follow me on the Twitter, you can check me out at RobertCFP. In case you're wondering what the CFP stands for, that's Ceti Fox Productions, which is the name I have given to the studio production that we do here. So it's at RobertCFP, or you can send me an email at robert.wade@cetifox.net. Love to hear from you. Certainly you can jump into the Facebook page and we'll interact with you. Haven't had a lot of activity recently, because I think everybody's just kind of getting wrapped back into the school thing. But we'll see if we can get a little bit more activity as we get over that first hump there. So I think that's all the things I had on the list to talk about. I told you it was going to be a full show. It ran over an hour and a half this time. I can talk to a brick wall, as you probably could tell. There's a party going on here 24/7, 365. So I'd love to have you join the party. Enter at your own risk. So that finishes up for this week, and we hope to see you next week on another exciting episode of Two Guys Who Dive. See ya.